photos, huge sharks, guaranteed.
Guaranteed?
More fish than Finding Nemo.
Wow!
Ladies and gentlemen, behold the wonders of the deep.
This sucks. Yep.
We won't take you for a ride. Insurance is a promise to pay. At Beacon, we keep our promises.
Good evening, viewers, once more, and welcome to You Decide Political Watch. This evening, our guests are William Joseph, and he is a member of the NDC St. George Southeast Constituency Branch. And he's also the Chief of Staff in the Prime Minister's Office and Ambassador for the OECS and CARICOM. We are also joined here by Mr. Bernard Isaac. He's, of course, the General Secretary of the NDC. And our topic tonight is we're going to be looking at the new look NDC. So let me welcome you gentlemen to You Decide Political Watch, of course.
Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you, Bernard. I think it's the first time we're having you.
Yes.
Yes. Well, yes, your first time on You Decide, I don't recall.
You're right.
I'm right, good. Look, 4 years ago, 2008, a strong, talented team of persons were elected with a powerful mandate from the people for change. Then you had the disintegration of the government over time. What happened? I mean, what went wrong and could it have been avoided?
Fine. Well, Bernard, you don't mind if I meet
No, you can go first.
Thank you very much, sir. I think to understand that particular development, one would need to go back to the state of the NDC in the period of opposition politics, when they were in opposition. And if one were to do that, one would discover that during that period, the party's general secretary essentially called the shots. He called the shots, he determined virtually everything that took place there. That power, if you will, was carried over into the post-election period and reflected itself in the establishment of the cabinet and many other features. Now, things appear to be going merrily along until one got to November 2010. And that was the point at which the Prime Minister sought to reshuffle his cabinet. There was a standoff, a refusal by the General Secretary, then Minister for Foreign Affairs and Tourism, and another minister, in support of him presumably, refused to sign for a number of days. And that action constituted a challenge to the constitutional power of the Prime Minister. I think that the public demonstration of the division commenced with that evidence. People saw something for the first time that they had not realized, they had not suspected perhaps in the earlier period. So essentially, November 2010 was a situation that said to all of us, listen, I am the power man in this party and government. You can't reshuffle me. I have a problem with that. You see? So let me move quickly along to the next scenario, and then perhaps Bernard might come in.
Yeah.
So the next significant development, which was a response to that, occurred during the party convention the following year, which must have been maybe around June or July, Bernard, of 2011?
27th of July.
July 2011. But let me insert this footnote. Many listeners or viewers would recall that when the standoff was in full effect, Chester Humphrey as one who commented on the issue, said to the public, listen, that moving Peter David amongst an attack on the progressive forces. No, and that language really, in a sense, brought to the fore the very essence, the very basis of what was to follow. He did not disclose what would happen, what would be the reaction to this attack on the progressive forces. But he was signaling that there was an attack on something that he called the progressive forces, which presumably was either led by or otherwise involved the Honorable Peter David and others, and that therefore you went then from that scenario to the party convention of 2011, at which point, in reaction to that, there was a deliberate and successful attempt to take control of the party. For what purpose? For the purpose of thereafter seeking to direct and instruct the government. No. If one looks at the party constitution, it addresses the question of the relationship between the party and the government. And it says very straightforwardly that an NDC administration must pay due regard to the views of its party. It does not say that the party is going to direct and control the government, and that therefore one saw the lines being drawn, that an attempt to use the party machinery effectively to manage the Prime Minister's powers under the Constitution. And that therefore, I'm going to stop at this point, what you have then been set up was this question of interest, motive, not a question of differences over style and opinion and such like, approach and so on. It was a question of a different interest that was being pursued at the time.
You want to add anything to that?
Well, it even went further than that, where the executive at the time was used as a rubber stamp for the ideas put forward by that particular individual. You had a situation where you had a formation of a chairpersons grouping. So you have the chairpersons from all the constituency branches coming together under the control of the secretariat. And they were actually directed as to what they must do, how they must do it within the executive. So you had that power grab, if you want to use that word, extending itself to every constituency to control
what how was the process managed? Yeah, because the fallout, or you say the collateral damage, seemed to have been enormous.
Yeah, but before we get to the fallout, you see, it is good to trace the whole trajectory of the problem. So we began with the November 2010, and we went to the control of the party at the convention. The next significant event, and I think this is really the turning point event in the issue, was the attempt to use the results of a poll and to use those results to persuade the political leader that he should step aside. He should step aside, supposedly on the ground that some of the persons polled were of the view that they would more readily support the NDC if it changes leadership to Peter David. And that on that ground, there was this effort, this very deliberate effort to persuade the political leader to step aside. So what we're talking about here, and I want to reiterate the point, is that because it relates to your question of management, that this thing never started as a difference of opinion to be managed or a difference of style to be managed as a function of leadership. It started as a confrontation, a challenge for power, where people were conscripted, both at the party level and at the cabinet level. And we've seen now the evidence of those who were so conscripted.
It's been said that power struggle, so to speak, if I'm going to use that term, was really not between Peter David and the Prime Minister, but it was between Peter David, then the tourism minister or the foreign affairs minister, and the Minister of Finance, Honorable Nazim Burke. Is that a fact?
Curiously, because prior to the elections, in fact, during the campaign, this was a very prevalent view that these boys were going to wrestle power from the leader, that there was going to be this struggle between David and Burke and so on. But what November 2010 did was to move the theater of any such contention from David Burke, and I'm not saying that there was any such, presumably, from David Burke to David Prime Minister Thomas. That's what happened. So this thing about Burke and David is not an issue that was in vogue once November 2010 had occurred.
It happened before that?
Well, I had not seen the evidence. I know it was talked about. It was speculated.
Okay. But I have to fast track things, But I'm sure in the course of the conversation we'll find time to touch on some of those subjects. So moving things forward to the convention, which in fact the spokesperson for the party then, or Senator Glenn Noel said that the convention on the 30th was going to be the mother of all convention. I interpret this to mean big and significant, yes? Tell us about this, your achievement, your specific outcomes from that convention. So what you cite as important coming out of that convention?
The election of a new executive, of course, to chart the way forward for the party. And then you have the expulsion of 10 persons from the party itself. And it's not the will of a few people. It was the convention speaking, the delegates of the convention speaking, that these people should be expelled. If you allow me, I can give you the result of those voting that took place. But we come to that. But in your
view, the key factors coming out of this convention, you said one is the new executive being elected and the expulsion of 10 persons.
You wanted a situation coming from the convention where you had to be united going forward.
But the party was able to part the way in terms of determining some resolution in terms of the way forward, other than new executive per se and expulsion. I mean, anything else?
Well, of course. The theme of the convention was NDC uniting to continue the mission.
Coming with the convention, what reached me following the convention, what made the news was not the new composition per se, that did, but what got certainly more airplay was the expulsion of a number of 10, which were considered high-level party members, and in particularly what many considered the news and aired by Pastor Simon himself, what he considered the disrespect to him. He said that was his words, But what happened? Could this have been avoided?
No. How could you have avoided a situation where you had infighting within the realms of the party? You want to have a situation where the party can unite and go forward. These people were not prepared to work with that political leader. How can you now avoid that situation from expelling them when you had all this time before and leading up to the convention to remedy the situation, which seemed to have reached the stage where it could not have been remedied?
You want to talk, but let me introduce this issue first, because I'm going to go to your constitution, because your section 17 makes specific provision for expulsion and suspension. And your constitution, again, 17 item 7 says that the party shall be obliged to give a member an opportunity to be heard on his own behalf and shall be entitled to representation by counsel. This is considered natural justice. You're a trained lawyer yourself.
Indeed,
natural justice. Was this opportunity given to the expelled members?
Let's context that, the response to that question. First of all, to appreciate that the convention of 2012 did not take place in normal circumstances.
What do you mean?
I mean by that it was a party for the first time virtually in the history of the party. There had been this prolonged period of infighting, publicly known, and that therefore, in other words, contention for power, contention for alternative leadership.
Okay.
So that therefore the situation was not normal. The second factor, that everybody knows that we are virtually on the eve of general elections. And the convention made it its primary business, by way of resolution, to determine that its primary purpose was to position the NDC for success at the general elections. Now, I think it is fair and reasonable that in order to do well with the electorate, any serious political party would have to present itself as a united force, a united body. Therefore, the issue of necessity, if you will, came upon the convention that it must act in these abnormal circumstances so as to give its party an opportunity to do well at the polls. Now remember this, every serious political party exists for the purpose of forming the government. The NDC is a major political party in Grenada. It is not a splinter, it is not a pressure group, and therefore the convention decided, before it proceeded to act, it decided that, listen, the success of the elections is the primary objective of the convention. Let me come now to your specific question. So that is the context.
Sure.
The resolution that was applied to expel people took particular note of Section 6 of the Constitution, which provides that the convention is the highest decision-making organ of the party. The resolution also paid cognizance to Section 17, the disciplinary procedure.
Yeah.
But it had to reckon with the unusual and special circumstances existing at the time. And therefore, the convention deliberately determined that it could not and would not apply Article 17 in this context. So, that is the basis on which the convention proceeded. Now, had the party left the convention, still loaded with the division problem, today the NDC could have kissed its chances at the polls bye-bye. It would have been a laughing stock.
But what is the meaning of your constitution if you disregard it conveniently?
It is not disregarded. That's why I drew to your attention Article 6. It says that the convention is the primary decision-making organ.
But essentially what you've done, is to try persons, to convict persons, because you made certain accusation. You said the resolution talk about, in referring to those persons, talk about power struggle, open efforts made to oust the political leader, hostile pronouncement of certain of elected members of parliament on TV and the internet, damaging to the interests of the party and adversely affecting its good name and image. In the interest of urgency and prudence, you may have denied persons their natural rights, their constitutional rights.
And if it is so, if a court were to determine that that is so, then the court would issue a declaration to that effect.
But do you think, and the bigger question, Mr. General Secretary, do you think you would have heard the image of the Prime Minister, because he has made a big point. I mean, he's known to be saying, like, respect for institution. It could be argued that this is disrespect to institution, not following the Constitution.
No.
I'm asking.
No, I would not agree with that.
But
you have a situation where, as Brother Joe said, you are operating in abnormal circumstances.
Yeah.
If you did not act coming out of that convention, you'll be laughed at. And the convention is the highest decision-making
precisely
body.
You see, the convention, reading your constitution, what the constitution does, it provides a person who may have been expelled by the natural organs of the party to appeal to the convention,
may have
not
been
for the convention to try them.
Who may have been
Convention doesn't
disciplined?
try them.
Who may have been disciplined?
By the disciplinary
Right?
committee or other organs
And
of the party.
if you
yeah.
go to the General Council and you did not get the redress that you were looking for, you appeal to the convention. But there is also room in the Constitution for removal.
I don't see that. You want to quote that section for me?
Yes.
Where?
Section 19
What
of
does
the
it say?
said. It says any member of the National Executive Council or the General Council or of the executive of any organ of the NDC other than the political leader may be removed from office before the expiry of his tenure of office.
Office, but not membership. Two different things, sir.
Yeah.
Granted.
Yes,
Yeah,
two different things.
Granted,
But hold on, I have to go to break now.
Fine.
Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sudden Waste Limited offers professional septic tank clearance at unbeatable prices. At Sudden Waste Limited, you dump it, we pump it, and we also disinfect it. Located in River St. George's next to Steele's Auto, Sudden Waste Limited for professional septic tank clearance. Also available portable toilets, garbage collection, and garbage bins. Call us today, 435-DIRT. That is 435-3478. Sudden Waste Limited. You dump it, we pump it.
It doesn't matter how many times you've failed. It doesn't matter how much you've heard it can't be done. It doesn't matter how long you've been waiting or asking. No matter what, we believe in smiling again and never giving up. Never give up. Vitamalt takes care of you.
Pure, clean, refreshing. A-Tang, premium purified water, produced by the Grenada Bottling Company.
Welcome back, viewers. We're here with Ambassador Joseph and Bernard Isaac, General Secretary of the NDC. And we're looking at the New Look NDC. Just to close off on this point, your outgoing General Secretary, you know what he said? He said the decision lacked transparency, it lacked democracy, and it lacked due process.
Well, he's entitled to say those things. We're entitled to say that we stood on the doctrine of necessity in unusual, special circumstances. Yeah, the action was taken in that it was necessary, absolutely necessary for the survival, the political survival of the NDC and its prospects at the
But you
polls.
see the implications possible, the fallout. What if you're taken to court? As I
Oh,
understand
that's
you may
fine.
have been. What if a court rules that all decisions following the suspension of the chairman in particular are null and void? What happens to your new executive?
Oh, well,
know, but what
no,
happens?
the
Yeah.
question is this. The question, no.
I don't know.
The chairman, no, I think you're tying up a number of
No,
things
nothing,
there.
because your chairman was expelled.
The chair.
No.
Your chairman was put out of the meeting.
No.
Leave.
The chairman left the meeting. The chairman was not expelled.
At that
A
point,
resolution was presented to the floor requesting that the acting chairman, is relieved of his duty.
Very unorthodox.
Right?
It's not.
The chairman called for the vote. Everybody say yay. When he asked for nay, there were no one saying nay.
I'm going to move on. Look, we're not going to win this. I'm going to look going forward. In 2008, the NDC was the heartbeat of change. Restoring integrity, renewing hope, and building together. What would it be for the upcoming election? What would it be? I mean, have you restored integrity? Have you renewed hope? I mean, was hope renewed really? And certainly you didn't build together because your party disintegrated, your government. I mean, so where do you start from? Where do you go?
well, I think in very short order,
Yeah.
the public is going to be introduced to the new thinking, the new slogans, the new taglines, the new messages of the NDC for the elections. Clearly, there's been similar to the separation that has been effected with respect to those persons who expel. Similarly, there's going to be a move away from some of the old stuff, and we'll be putting new messages on the table.
So you don't have this yet. But the NNP has their message, and let me tell you what it is. They are saying united to rescue and develop Grenada. They believe that the situation is so grim that the country needs to be rescued. What is your interpretation of the situation?
I've been wondering who they united with.
Well, they're talking about the people, I'm assuming, because they wanted to discard the yellow and the green and the red and say, look, it's one people.
And that is believable?
Well,
I know it's not for you to answer that. But
obviously, I would ask the people. Our listeners would answer it, I'm sure. They have an opinion.
Well, every party is entitled to determine what slogans it wishes to put before the electorate, what emotional and psychological messages they wish to put. We are going to have appropriate messages when the time comes.
We take what's happening outside. The noted political scientist Peter Wickham. He's described what happened there as a major political blunder. We go back to what happened in Grenville. The decision of the NDC to expel the members, because he went on to say that the government has now lost the moral legitimacy in the context where the Constitution of Grenada states that the Prime Minister is the person that commands the majority of members in the House of Parliament. The point is, he no longer.
But he also predicted that the Prime Minister would have lost the no confidence vote.
Well, he's not making a prediction here. Yes. What he's saying here is that the government has lost its moral legitimacy. It no longer controls the majority of the member in the House. It's for Honorable Tillman Thomas to be the Prime Minister. Facto, does he? Does he control the majority?
Let us understand this thing in another way. I mean, Mr. Wickham is entitled to his academic opinions or his other opinions that suits him. Okay, the Constitution of Grenada provides so many things. One of them is the particular and very specific facility, if you will, that is called the prorogation of the Parliament. That question is coming in that context, that you've lost the majority of the members. The notion of a minority government is well known on the Westminster system of parliamentary government. It is well known. Grenada has had, Herbert Blaise ran a minority government in Grenada before, right here in Grenada. So Mr. Wickham and like-minded might, say what they will. We have a practical situation on the ground here. There is nothing about the continuance in office of the present government that is unconstitutional. Have you seen? If that were the case, that's
why he didn't say legal. He said moral.
Moral. Well, is there indignation and protest in Grenada by the people?
No.
No. I'm sorry.
Finish, please. Go ahead.
Every society has its standards and so on, its morals and values and so on that they subscribe to. People subscribe to, and if there were a moral challenge surrounding the existence of the regime at this period, certainly the custodians of that morality or that moral standard must be the people of Grenada, and they're the ones, hold on one second, they're the ones who, in my expectation, would take steps to demonstrate that they are opposed to what is happening.
Just that. You hear about the petition taking place? There's a petition of 5,000 people going to the Governor General to say, call the Parliament?
Well, the petition is laughable. If you have a constitutional situation occurring where the Parliament is prorogued, can you go to the Governor General and ask him to do something against the very said constitution that puts him in office?
Well, answer your question, though, but I'm going to the phone first because I have two callers in line. Go ahead, caller. Good evening.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Byron.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Byron.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Senator Humphrey here.
Good evening, Senator.
My good friend Willie Joseph, my ideological sparring partner. Yeah, I am really looking at this with a bit of amazement. I find it quite entertaining. But really, with all jokes aside, it's a very sad day when a government has to run from its own parliament. It's a sad day. But of course, if you follow the philosophical signposts of Pandey, he says politics has its own morality. But let me just come back to the issue of my expulsion, over which I shed not a tear. All right? Willie, let me ask you this. Was the Constitution amended at the last convention?
Not that I know of.
It wasn't amended.
Not that I know
All right,
of.
good. Fine. If the Constitution was not amended, then the convention is bounded by the Constitution. The convention has the powers to amend the Constitution. There's no doubt about that. But unless and until the convention amends the Constitution, it is bounded by the Constitution. Now, there's been a fair degree of political deception here, because let me make the point to you. In the last time the NDC formed the government in alliance with other folks, the same things St. Louis and others, so what's the life end of that government? It ended up in confusion. Dr. Francis Alexis was at war with Brizan and June Purcell and others. And Finley St. Louis himself was on a limb outside there, so that there was utter confusion. So to spread the picture that what has happened in the NDC over the last few things is something completely new is a falsification of history. But I want to come back to the point of my expulsion. Because what do you know as a fact? And the Prime Minister, who is an attorney at law, and the guy upon whom you have been working, Nazim Burke, also an attorney, knows that my expulsion, I can't speak about others, is totally in violation of the Constitution. Simply because the convention does not have the power to expel a member. And if you read the Constitution, it will tell you that. The convention acts as a privy council.
Senator,
it is the executive that must do the expulsion.
Senator, please wrap up.
And if, one second.
Yeah.
It is the executive council or body that must do the expulsion. And if the member is dissatisfied or feels he's unfairly treated, he goes to the general council. And if he still feels that he is not treated fairly, he then goes to the convention. Let me say something to you, really, because we are not fools. This resolution didn't come from the floor. It was manipulated from the floor. It was manipulated from the floor.
Senator, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Let me respond very, very in short order to say this. That the party has received notice from Council Cajetan Hood to the effect that he proposes to bring take legal action on behalf of 10 expelled members. Senator Chester Humphrey is one such member. And therefore, we are not at liberty, really, to discuss his expulsion in the context of the legal action that his council has already presumably instituted, or certainly has given notice. So we are not going to treat with this issue beyond this point.
Was it legal
the court is going to decide the issue.
Legal term on that? Why you can't discuss it?
The court is going to deal with the issue.
Okay, we have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, Mr. Campbell.
Good
you
evening.
hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Campbell, I can understand. When Mr. David resigned the no confidence vote, when he spoke about no confidence vote, he said ultimate power resides in the people. He also said let the people's voices be heard. So the people's voices were heard and power was in the people. And I like to compliment the delegates for expelling these guys. And let me say to Senator Humphrey and all of them, the people in NDC, they don't want you. So if they don't want you, why you want to force yourself on the people? Get your hell out.
Thank you very much, caller. Good evening. We have to be respectful all the time here. Any more callers online? Good evening, caller. No. Look, I want to move on to this. I want to talk a little bit about the economy. The Minister of Finance admits that the economy is in crisis. He blames external factors and the legacy of the NNP. The NNP, in return, places the blame on the stewardship of your government, of the NDC. Will the NDC take responsibility for the state of the economy?
Well, you know, the state of the economy is essentially reflects a continuum. Okay, the actions of successive regimes over a period of time. And it would be true to say, as is well known, that the NDC's formed the government for the last 4 odd years, and therefore it would have some responsibility with regard to the state of the economy. Now, we are not about to apportion the responsibility for between party X and party Y. I mean, one may discuss factors that would have contributed to the overall present situation that we're faced with. So, you know, I don't think that really it is beneficial to us to engage in a discussion on the economy regarding policy failure, regarding, you know, things
Why
of
are you
that sort.
taking responsibility? That's the question.
Sorry?
Is the government taking responsibility for the conditions of the economy?
Well,
in other words, we hear, and the opposition have said that, you know, it's the external factors. But what about the fact, for example, that your administration, the government, for the past 2-3 years there have been issues of resignations, of reassignment of ministers, of positions, dislocation. Could that have been a factor, a distraction, as it were?
But obviously,
So it's like, are you going to take responsibility for it?
Well, you know,
yes or no?
If there is infighting in a government and a party in government, clearly that in and of itself is going to induce some measure of instability.
So you're admitting that you take responsibility for it?
I'm saying to you that where a government is affected by infighting, that infighting is going to induce instability. That instability is going to send certain messages to the market.
Like investors, for example?
Indeed.
So that's like, you're taking responsibility for it, sir.
Are you expecting us to take full responsibility?
Yes. Well, you tell me. You tell me. I'm asking the question.
The fact is not the only factor. That's the point.
It's not the only factor, but there must be some level of responsibility that you have to take.
We go to the lines. Good evening, caller.
Hello, yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, yes. I am listening to the conversation, and I think both Mr. Isaac and Mr. Joseph are so right in bringing back to your discussion that, you know, Grenada has operated on a minority government before, and if we are based on the Westminster style or level, it is exactly that, because in the 70s and 80s, at one stage, you know, the British Parliament was operating on a minority government. So that the discussion that, you know, it cannot operate for a period of time on a minority government is so incorrect. You know, we're not doing the American style, although we have senators, whereas in England we have local MPs, local government. You know, we are so, the NDC, the action that they have taken is so right, because we have a few of these so-called people that want power. They're power hungry, and I think NDC, if you go ahead with the position that you all are holding, congratulations, and continue to do so.
Thank you very much, caller. We have another caller online. Good evening, caller.
Hello?
Go ahead, caller.
Good night, and good night to the two gentlemen. Mr. Campbell, I'm glad that you have started to discipline that lady. Thank you. Secondly, I do not understand, I'm not getting enough from these two gentlemen, because the infighting is still in the party.
Right.
Because Mr. Glenwell made it clear that there is a member who is sitting in the cabinet now, who he said was one of them who was in the attempt to overthrow or to defeat the Prime Minister. So you can't tell me that you infighting is finished. When you have persons sitting in your cabinet now or in your party that still have a shoulder looking over him, that it cannot be. And I do not satisfy with the way that the person was expelled. I think you have broken your constitution. Yes, if the person did think that is wrong, and I agree that some of the statement that was made by some of the persons that members of the party was not decent. But it came from both sides, because you heard Mr. Glenwell made his statement that we throw one stone and we're going to throw the next one, and someone ain't going to have to go. This was a matter of sending the wrong signal just the same way too. I am not going to get into the seriousness of your party, but that you have to take into consideration too.
Thank you very much, caller. We have another caller in line. Sorry, any comments on the caller?
I don't.
Fine. Look, an election is coming. It's due sooner or later. Domestic issues, including the economy, employment, and youth opportunities are likely to be key issues in this election. Employment, youth opportunities. What have this government achieved as far as youth opportunities? Because, I mean, this is where the bulk of our population lies, and what is your record in going forward?
Byron, to have any society functioning properly, education is key. And our record in education can speak for itself, can stand any test of time. We have done immensely.
But that's
in
the whole
education.
point. A lot of the youths are, they're educated, but what are the opportunities that are emerging for them?
If you educate the youth,
yeah,
they can present opportunities for themselves.
Well, to an extent, but we see hundreds and hundreds of young people leaving school, well educated, but the opportunities are extremely minimal, limited for them.
We have laid the foundation, and on that foundation you would build. So in going forward, you expect to build on that foundation and to create more opportunity.
Because the electorate is going to ask you, what have you done in this area? And in the employment area, for example, what is your record? What is your record?
I think it is the case that unemployment is high in Grenada.
What numbers you put it at?
I would think in the order of well over 30%, I would say. And youth unemployment is significant in that respect. Now, how does employment come about? Employment comes about on the basis of investment in production, in productive activities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We've had a situation in Grenada where, for a lifetime, virtually, we've operated a model of the economy that has been dependent on loans, grants, and I'm not saying that something is implicitly wrong in these things. Grants meaning budgetary support, remittances from abroad, taxes, locally collected taxes.
That's what you call a broken model?
And some foreign investment. We know that since our independence in 1974, Grenada has had virtually a dribble of foreign direct investment. Virtually a dribble. So that's an indictment on a number of regimes coming through the system. Remittances is not something within the control of any government. And neither is the question of grants, budgetary support, and so on, although governments may make efforts in this respect. So we have a situation where when the recessionary conditions bite and they come home, when you don't have the possibilities of borrowing to finance projects because you have virtually maxed out on your borrowing. I mean, Grenada has borrowed in excess of virtually $2 billion in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we are faced with a situation now where, in terms of the schedule of repaying these debts, that in and of itself has generated a significant problem. Why? And I want to be very particular about my comments regarding this issue. Now, for a small country, loans will be necessary. The problem for us is that we did not strike a balance between, in the application of those loans, between productive activity and other activity. Meaning, if we put virtually all of it in roads and buildings, the employment we would enjoy, because it is a project, would be very short term. When that project is finished, the employment is finished. If we had put some of the money in the production of something, let us say, for example, we had financed a new fishing fleet. Yeah? So we could put scores of fishermen out there and so on to earn revenue for themselves and for the country. Then we begin to have a different scenario. So the principal problem with the model is this, and I'm trying to put it dramatically: borrow, beg, and spend. And that spend has typically been with an eye on the vote, as against a model that said borrow, beg, and produce. This morning I listened. This morning I viewed a comment on British TV, the internet, regarding the Tory, the Conservative Party's conference, and the Prime Minister is saying to his people there that, watch, the only way out of poverty is work. What is he saying? He's saying that the British society must produce. And that is our problem in Grenada.
We take a pause on that point because we have to take a break. Viewers, please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Harmony. The complete balance of the senses. Sight. Sound. Smell. Touch and taste. Create your state of harmony in no time at all with the Baron Gourmet Collection. Baron, we make food tasty.
Superior one-on-one customer service. Phenomenal products customized to your individual style and need. Fast and efficient service are all attributes that have made St. Lou the leading manufacturers of windows and doors for over 30 years in St. Lucia. And we are now pleased to extend our services to you. Try our new single-hung windows, which can be tilted for easy cleaning. Our famous casement windows, which locks with keys for added security. Our gliders, projected aluminum and heavy sliding windows, sliding and commercial doors, commercial shop fronts, and more. Visit us today, building number 19 Frequente Industrial Park, St. George's, or call us at 439-6538.
I just want you back for good.
Live on Community Channel 6 every Saturday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's Sound System Saturday.
Welcome back, viewers. We're looking at the new look NDC, National Democratic Congress, and we have with us William Joseph and Mr. Isaac, the General Secretary of the party. What I want to say also, there's a new feature here that you can text. You can text your questions, comments to 534-071. Those of you with telephones, you can do that. We would endeavor to read your questions. Give your questions to our guests. Gentlemen, question of leadership. Yeah, you want to conclude on the point?
Let's finish off on this,
please,
on this
yes,
model
go
issue.
ahead.
Three points.
Yeah.
One is that I think it is important that people appreciate where we're at with the debt servicing issue, because it is one of those burdens on the public purse. In 2007, the debt was paid down at $92 million, virtually. In 2011, the debt was paid at $252 million. Yes? So that's one piece of statistic to bear in mind. The revenue, if you look at revenue performance between 2005 and 2011, you would see an average growth of about $50 million. $50 million. Third point, if you look at the performance of grants and budgetary support, you see an average of about $22 million. So here is what is happening. It's it's trending downwards. So the debt servicing is putting a tremendous burden on the public purse. Budgetary support and grants is falling off. And remember at the beginning we said that grants are falling off. Then we said that that governments have little control over these things. Yeah. So and with the recessionary conditions, you have a tightening in the domestic economy, and therefore the tax base, the taxation.
So understand that, mindful of this, therefore, why did you have an unrealistic budget of $1 million that is in fact difficult to finance? In fact, the opposition and other members of parliament have said we have not seen the essence of the budget, the scheme. But don't answer yet. I have to go to the lines because I have callers online. Good evening, callers. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Campbell, and good evening to your panel.
Go ahead, please.
Mr. Campbell, what is amazing to me that your panel are reluctant to take responsibility on the part of the government of the state of our economy. Now, when they came into office, right, they came into office with the mandate that they will manage the economy. We know that our debt is high, but that's what you are there for. So it's not about blaming game or NMP. You have the iron in your hand. You've got to use it. Now, going forward, right, the members that you all expel, like Peter Humphrey and like Pastor Stanford Simon, they are the ones who are assisting you all and the Prime Minister to be there today. So when you expel them, I hope that you all realize that he can get his union members to vote against you all, as he had told them to vote for you. Now, the way forward under Tillman Thomas, currently, I think for NDC to go forward, they really need a new leader. I'm not against Tillman Thomas, but looking at it from an economic and social standpoint, he's not a leader. He being the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance did not inform him, or he don't know that he hadn't got any money to pay salary. How could that be? As the Prime Minister, you have to be able to man every ministry. You have to have a communication between the permanent secretary and your ministers, and we cannot go forward with that.
Thank you very much, caller. Yes, you wish to comment?
No, I don't.
You don't. But it raises a question of leadership here. Yeah, and let me tell you on that. Some of the resigning members of the cabinet have been very critical of the leadership style of the Prime Minister. In fact, one said that one expelled member of your party said, at this critical moment, it calls for more caring and enlightened leadership. Another said his leadership style is questionable. These are the people that have been close with him in the cabinet, members of the party at the senior level, that are saying, look, our leader, his leadership style is questionable. What do you think is the view of the public?
That is what the public, they choose to say to the public. Remember, I made the point at the onset that the division issue, and I dare any one of them to contradict me, had nothing to do with the issues of style, differences of opinion, even I would go as far as to say differences of a policy. And I also made the point that there were a number of them who were conscripted in the fight. And therefore, when you are engaging in a fight to oust your leader, and you can't tell the public that, because the truth be told, all of that infighting that took place for over 18 months fell flat on its face. Why? Principally for this reason, that it was not in the public's interest. In other words, they were not pursuing a public cause, and that's why there was no support for them. And that is why you saw Gove and you saw what Latant was when on that day of showdown they called all their forces out. And the people, the NDC members and supporters demonstrated where they stood on the issue. So I am not buying this question of leadership style and thing and so on. That is the ruse. That's what they throw in the public domain.
We go to the line. Good evening, caller. Go ahead. You're on. Good evening, caller.
Good evening.
Ahead,
good evening, Baron.
Go ahead.
I want to make two comments, not really questions.
Go ahead.
And first, I want to address the comment to the General Secretary. It seems as if you, Byron, knows more about the Constitution than the General Secretary. Okay? And then Mr. Joseph, right? Mr. Joseph doesn't understand the nitty-gritty of politics anyway. Right? All this sweet talk doesn't win an election. Mr. Joseph was a non-performer when he was at the tourist board. And he, right now, he's defending that position because of a massive salary that we know about anyway. So all this mumbo-jumbo talk about power and who wants power, that's just talk. That thing at the convention was carefully orchestrated, it was clandestine, and it was carried out as a purge. And that doesn't exist in our society these days. That was for Soviet Russia and China.
Thank you very much, caller.
Scandalous. Let me respond.
Please, go ahead.
I mean, the caller would, I suppose, in his most sober moments, understand that he's just made a very, very scandalous and, libelous statement that was a non-performer at the Board of Tourism. Let me say this for the record, that I am the only person in the history of the Grenada Tourist Board to have served 2 consecutive terms, and I served those terms under the NNP administration. I was recommended for a 3rd term by the board of directors. Do you believe, do you think that I would have survived all of this time? I would be recommended for a 3rd consecutive term if I was a non-performer?
But the said board terminated your employment.
No, you see, that is not correct. I'm asking,
it's a question.
It is not the said board. And if you wish for an explanation at this point, I will oblige. Let me say this. Again, for the benefit of the public.
Sure.
Because people are speculating and people have said this and have said that.
Go ahead, please.
Arising out of the Sunwing issue in 2009, late 2009.
Yes.
Many people recall that there was an action taken by the board of directors to suspend me for 2 weeks. On what basis? They claimed that I had breached a gag order, that they had said to me I shouldn't speak to the press, and that I had done so. And they notified me in writing to that effect. When the minutes of the meeting at which they purported to have given me those instructions came up, that instruction was nowhere to be found. So I wrote them in February or March of 2010 to say, your minutes have been confirmed. There is no such instruction there to me. Please clear my name. Up until October, November of 2010, they had not done so. So I wrote again, and I said, you have not cleared my name.
Did you instigate legal action?
One second. And that if you don't take steps to do so, within a particular period of time, I'm going to have to put this matter in the hands of my lawyers.
Did you?
I mean, this forum is not a place for this.
No, but did you?
It did not become necessary. I tell you why. Mm-hmm. Because there and then they advised themselves, I presume, that I had breached some sort of principle of employment and so on, the implied term of trust and confidence, they said, and that therefore this was the basis for my separation from the board. Now, in the same breath that they advised me of that, they said, you know what, here, we know that we believe you would want to take legal action on this, but we don't want to go to court. So let us negotiate a settlement.
What was the settlement?
There and then.
What was the settlement?
I'm not going to discuss that.
Okay, that's
but I think the public has now gotten a very clear picture about this notion
why
of
you want to discuss the settlement, Ambassador?
Why should I?
I'm asking the questions.
We discussed the infringement and the arbitrary conduct
That's fine. We go to the phone. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Campbell. Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to mention two things to your guests. Right? One is to you and one is to your guests. I am not defending the NDC or the NNP or any political party. But I want to make it absolutely clear that it is time that Grenadians wake up to the fact that we have to change our strategy of how we are running this country. The NNP came and we had the same broken policy of borrow, beg, and spend, as Mr. Joseph mentioned. Nothing productive came out of the 13 years that we can now look back and say, here is an investment that was done during those 13 years that is bringing real benefits to the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. A lot of roads was built. The stadium was built. A lot of investment took place in giving guarantees to hoteliers and to business people, the marketing board stuff, the hotel in Grand Anse with Landa and the others. And all of these things, large sums of monies went down the drain, but we have nothing today bringing returns for us to pay the loans back for all of these monies. So something has got to change. And we have a same opposition leader who is going on the platform now and promising that when he gets into office again, we're going to go to Kuwait and we're going to borrow money again. Grenadians got to understand that this is not going to work anymore. And it's time Grenadians wake up and realize that we have to put our backs to the wheel if we want to change the direction of this country and turn things around.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I mean, the call is talking about productivity, work, production.
Well, that is the heart of the critique. Yeah. That is the heart of the essence of what I'm putting forward. And he's raised this question about borrowing from the Kuwaiti Fund for feeder roads. No.
Hold on, Ambassador, we're going to come back to that because I have two callers online and I want to take them and we'll just accumulate the answers. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening, Byron, and good evening to your guest.
Good evening.
I want to ask your guest a question. I have with me a report from the ECCB, which said it is a 2011 report, which says that the fishing sector grew by some 41.3%. And I heard Mr. Joseph talk about spending money in the productive sectors. Could you tell the nation what your government did over the last 4 years in the fishing sector based upon this tremendous growth when all the other sectors were showing negative growth? Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller.
Oh, my reference to the, I don't know, I don't have the statistics, I don't have it, but my point regarding investment in fishing as an example of a productive area, and my point is that if we're going to borrow, a substantial amount of that borrowing should go into things like that. So perhaps if the borrowing X years ago had put Y dollars, millions into that, we might have grown 200%.
Okay, it's a reference. We go. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please. You're on.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mr. Good evening.
Good evening.
I have two quick comments or questions. Mr. Joseph is talking about the broken model. I'm wondering whether the new model is articulated, is being adopted by the government in ourselves, because it seems to me that the same model he's condemning, he's part of that same model. That's my first comment. The second one is, it seems as though there is a new excuse for the non-performance of this government. It used to be the global economic crisis. Now it's the rebels. What should Grenadians believe? Because it seems as though right now the government has found another excuse. Let us as Grenadians wake up. All that's happening is that the NDC is trying to give to Grenadians an excuse for the non-performance. We're not buying it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but
Thank
you
you,
know,
caller.
let me take the last point
Sure.
first. The point we made about the rebel action, the division, was that it was a source of instability. That's all we said. Okay? It is not the only factor, but it was a source of instability. Okay, let me make he's asked me a question regarding the model, the new model. It is known that the government of Grenada has advanced a position that it calls the transformational sectors. And that is the homepage for the new development strategy that we're talking about. Okay? By its very nature, the government is signaling that it understands that we have to move the economy onto a production footing. And therefore, it has identified these areas, these sectors, in which investment should take place so that we get this activity going. So in time, the full strategy is going to be rolled out. There will be opportunity for people to contribute on refining the strategy, the thinking, professionals, technical people, ordinary citizens, and so on. But that is the direction that the government is going. And it is absolutely necessary that we whichever government it is, that Grenada moves in the direction of borrow, spend, produce. So we put an end to this borrow, spend, and catch vote, which really satisfies a short-term political interests, but does nothing for us in the long term. And that is the context in which this question of the pretense of prosperity.
We always have the breakup because we always want to go to the line. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Good night, sir.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I want to ask the General Secretary a question. I knew for a fact that Mr. Jerome Joseph is a high-level executive member, and he shared platforms with the 10 people that was expelled. Why wasn't he expelled? What is your position on he? Thank you.
The judgment of the convention.
So, General Secretary, we had to understood that Mr. Joseph's name was put forward, but it was subsequently withdrawn.
That is the judgment of the convention and the delegates. It have to be left up to them. They are the ones that purported who must be expelled. It wasn't the executive of the party deciding who must be expelled. It's the convention. So if the convention chose not to go that way, the judgment call.
I have a follow-up question for you, but I want to go back to the feeder road because I think you raised this question about the feeder road, because what we had here was that 4 years ago the government decided, look, we are not going forward with CCC for various reasons. One of the main reason I heard was that the level of mobilization was too high. It was over 30%, and therefore you refused to go forward, although Labour requested arbitration on the matter, because they felt it was important. It was critical to keep this $40+ million in circulation. The economy needed it, critical. Instead, it didn't go forward. It was delayed for 4 years plus, and then we are back to square one. It's awarded again to the CCC.
So what is the...
Well, the point is that Grenada has lost, it is part of the reason for the economy where it's at. In other words, 300 workers were unemployed for this period of time. Some lost their homes.
One moment. Are you insisting on that position?
No, but this is what Labour has said.
No. Labour has not said that.
Yes.
You mean the trade union?
Yes, the trade union.
Well, who is going to believe the noise of the trade union in this context?
But they're speaking on behalf of the workers.
Noise. Are you suggesting to me? Do you think anybody in that trade union can tell the public that none of these workers who did not have the opportunity to continue in employment under the project were not employed elsewhere?
What's the gain by delaying 4 years plus?
The question is not what is the gain.
No, what it is, in other words, because the project did not go forward. In other words, you delayed it and restarted the whole process. The question is, what was the advantage? What was the gain in that process?
I think, I don't think that is the way to pose the issue.
Well,
the point is that, as my recollection on the issue, and I really didn't want to get into this particular one, but there were issues regarding value for money.
Okay.
There were concerns, and it must be legitimate concern. Remember, this is a loan. This money is to be paid back by the taxpayers of Grenada. And therefore, the government took advice as it must have on the bona fides of the figures and so on that were presented, and it was not satisfied that the asking price was reasonable to do the job. No, the government at the time did not say, we think it is $20 million too high. They were, in my view, standing on a principle that there should be assured value for money within the project. And I think the public would have an interest in that. Okay? Now, it cannot be, no one can sustain an argument that however number of workers were involved, that they lost their jobs and they never worked after that. It can't be true.
This is according to the labor. I mean,
labor would say that for his own purposes. We don't accept that.
But you imagine $40+ million in circulation in the economy. I mean, what this mean? But not only that, for 4 years, those roads, because the important thing here is those roads would have repaired, make accessible a number of important roads for agricultural production. So you're looking again at production possibilities.
I submit to you,
yes,
and I think every reasonable person would appreciate this, that if you talk about agricultural output and the need to incentivize that, to make it happen, the construction of farm roads is not the only consideration.
It's a major one, significant one.
We go, I don't know how you're going to measure it. You have to show me how you measure it. We go to, there are issues of ownership, there are issues of the supply of labor and the price at which that labor is coming, there are issues of capital that farmers would need to raise, and so on, plus other services from the Ministry of Agriculture that they would need. So it's a host of factors.
Correct.
And therefore,
yes,
if you take, I don't know how we're going to, because intuitively, I don't know that we will ever have agricultural production to pay back this $40-odd million.
Let me.
I don't know.
Let me tell you this.
You're a farmer.
That the feasibility of the project of this agricultural feeder road, the feasibility was based on the production aspect of agriculture. In other words, because they would have identified the acreage available, what type of crops would have been able. All these statistics and analysis would have been done before the project was approved.
Well,
so this is already there.
You know, you're a farmer.
Yeah. I go to the lines. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I have three comments to make. One, the NDC, the guys on the program tonight said that the NDC is different now, they're moving forward. But how could you move forward? Every time you come on the program or on Wednesdays, you always have to be like either the people that you expel is a problem or NNP is a problem. We're tired as a youth. I'm really tired of hearing that. All I'm trying to tell you guys, try to tell us what you can do for us. We can move forward in the next 5 years. I mean, we're tired, fed up of hearing this. I mean, that NNP this or Peter David this or, I mean, we're tired of this. We need results. We really need results.
Thank you very much, caller. Very important point.
Well, I don't know.
What is your...
But the point was not be labeled on this program. I can't
No, I know, but I mean, what is going to be your thrust? I mean, what because you said that the slogan, the message is not yet prepared.
That's right.
But you're building your team. You announce your team going forward. I mean, the team must have some sense of purpose in terms of what is going forward with.
Yes. Mr. Joseph just spoke about the 5 transformational sectors.
Okay.
Right? That is the thrust going forward. You would have to use these sectors to drive the Grenadian economy. So it's not a matter of just bashing NNP.
That's fine. I go to the line again. Good evening, caller.
Mr. Campbell.
Good evening.
Mr. Campbell, I didn't get to make that point the first time, but I want to say this.
Go ahead.
In regards to the expelling of the 10 members, right?
Yeah.
It is remembered that during the budget debate where the no confidence motion came up, the then General Secretary of the party made it absolutely clear in his defense that he was not pleased with the leadership and the stewardship of the Honorable Tillman Thomas. And he said then that he was not prepared to move by way of 15 members of a cabinet to decide on the fate of the government, but he was going to take it to the general conference of the party. Now, don't we think that the gentleman owe the nation an excuse as to why he was absent in the general conference? I mean, in the convention. And why all of the other members who are now talking about being expelled illegally was not there. They didn't show up. And I would believe if I want to influence something, I would have to be present. I would believe if they were there, probably the outcome may have been different, because they would have been able to have some form of influence on what actually transpired going forward. But the fact that all of them choose to abstain from appearing,
Thank you.
They can't blame anybody.
Thank you very much, caller.
I think it's a very interesting perspective on the issue. I think the short comment on it is that they were all aware that convention day that they had been defeated. They started a war, ran it for 18 months, did not pursue this war in the name of the public, no public interest. A concern about seizing power.
Well, given that outcome, that's the whole point. You didn't have to violate your constitution.
Well, you keep going to that. That's a matter for the court.
But another point
matter
is
for the court, Byron.
Was a report presented by the General Secretary at the meeting?
No.
No report was presented, but was a report
no report was sent.
Did the chairman of the meeting, Pastor Simon, received a report?
He did not indicate such.
We go to we take a break. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Jackie's Motors, huge sharks guaranteed. Guaranteed? More fish than Finding Nemo. Wow! Ladies and gentlemen, behold the wonders of the deep.
This sucks. Yep.
We won't take you for a ride. Insurance is a promise to pay. At Beacon, we keep our promises.
Love the land you live on. The land is simply awesome and majestic. It feeds, clothes, and shelters us. The land protects us from the Hurricane Ivans of the world. Provides clear crystal waters 24/7. Could you imagine life without the land? I want you to ask yourself this question. Why is that? Slowly dying. With our bad practices every day. My land, your land disappearing. Is disappearing. Is what we call land degradation. It show up as soil erosion, post-soil and loss of vegetation. That's how we degrade this Spice Island. With landslides, slippage and dying mangrove, to name a few. So here's what I want y'all to do. No one wins from land degradation. The power is in your hands to stop it today. Begin sustainable land management and love the land you live on.
Sudden Waste Limited offers professional septic tank clearance at unbeatable prices. At Sudden Waste Limited, you dump it, we pump it, and we also disinfect it. Located in River Road, St. George's next to Steve's Auto, Sudden Waste Limited for professional septic tank clearance. Also available, portable toilets, garbage collection, and garbage bins. Call us today, 435-DIRT. That is 435-3478. Sudden Waste Limited. You dump it, we pump it.
Pure, clean, refreshing. A-Tang, premium purified water. Produced by the Grenada Bottling Company.
Welcome back, viewers. Look, election 2008, NDC won by a close margin, less than 2,000. I think it's 1,830 votes thereabout. The past 2 years have been very costly for your party and the government due to the infighting and, of course, the poor economics showing. This, I'm saying, compounded with the splitting of the party, more or less. The undecided voters, the analysis is that they remain undecided. They have not felt the urge or the motivation to go forward. I mean, how do you feel about, given the split, so-called split? I mean, what's your composure? What's your confidence, so to speak, Mr. General Secretary, in going forward into an election, given this scenario?
It is a fact that our PR would have suffered somewhat from the conditions of the party coming after the election. But in going forward, we expect to build on that and bring the message to the people. We have done a lot, but the message must be brought. The people must get to know what we have done. And we are not going to spare a moment in bringing the message to every creek and cranny of this country.
You see, me add to that, because it's a numbers game.
Yes.
You see the New National Party not facing the conditions that we have faced, produce a rally and cannot demonstrate stronger support than we have put on the ground here in Grenada. So it's telling you something about the Grenadian electorate. They can separate the issues. They understood very well, and that's why they resolved the division problem in this way. They realized that Tillman Thomas was not being given a fair chance to run the country. They remain committed to the values of the brand.
What's those
and
values?
They were prepared
what are those values?
to protect.
I want you to answer this question, because I hear the core values all the time, but people hear, what are the core values of your party, of the NDC?
Integrity in public life, good governance, respect for institution and the rule of law.
But it's debatable whether you have respected those said things, because again, we're not going to go back into it. But respect for institution is again what we've heard Senator Humphrey and for saying that we disrespect for the institution, for the laws governing the institution.
We cannot allow the issue to rest on that.
But I'm just saying respect for institution.
Let me say it, because there is no challenge to the institution. We have said that the actions of the convention were founded on the basis of necessity.
And we'll move on. I'm
not
going to raise any further
That's what I like the record to show.
I'm not going to raise any further question on this.
Thank you, sir.
Financing for an election is critical. Is that an issue for the NDC, Mr. General Secretary?
Well, it will be an issue for any political organization. But I can tell you that despite what everybody is saying, you would have looked at the different rallies that we would have been able to pull off. And those were funded by friends of
where are you raising those money? Where's the party raising those money? Why are you laughing, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, you know you ought not to answer that question.
I can ask any question here.
I know.
You would not wish to go into that. You don't necessarily have to disclose your donors.
Yeah. Let me tell you, the OAS, and I've asked this question to a number of persons from the OAS mission. The last election, they raised a number of issues, and two had to do with the tension and uncertainty with the scheduling of events and other issues. And they have advised that, they suggest that the political parties with civil society get together and put some kind of accord. Is this something your party would be willing to work with, to have?
One of our core values is respect for law. So once that is dictated and is requested of us, we will definitely participate in such discussion and define an amicable solution.
Any final comments, Sir Ambassador? We come to the end of the program. Any final comments?
I thank you for the opportunity. I think we can now all look forward to an exciting campaign, hopefully. It is true that the NDC today, as we speak, is refreshed, It is bouncing. It is relevant to the electorate. We know what we have to do as we go forward in terms of when the campaign commences. But I say this point finally, that the people of Grenada, the society, has shifted the bar on the politics in this country. And all politicians need to pay regard to that fact. I'll give you an example. People talk, Tillman Thomas, Prime Minister, political leader of the NDC, has talked about good governance and so on. He didn't create this thing. The good governance bar was set by the society. And he is simply the custodian of it.
So we have to conclude here.
Thank you, sir.
But I want to say, particularly for you, Mr. General Secretary, that beginning next month, what you decide Political Watch will be doing is having constituency debates. In other words, the candidates or the caretakers in the constituency will be debating the issues at the local level. So I look forward certainly to this, and I hope you come back, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Viewers, that's all the time we have. We want to thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week. Have a good evening.